There was a feeling within the club that Spurs needed a right wing back, a left-sided centre-back and another striker. From what I understand, Conte agrees with that, but also would like a central midfielder. That's what I understand. They're kind of 4 priority positions. So when it comes to the wing-back slot, obviously looks like Matt Doherty is going to head off. A lot of talk that Adama Traore maybe will come in and, Conte will, how do I put this? I suppose convert him. You know my thoughts on Adama Traore. I would worry about him as a right wing back, defensively, and I've seen a lot of people saying, he's the answer to our prayers. He will bring creativities, goals, and assists that Emerson Royal cannot. I refer you to Adama Traore's stats, of course. Adama Traore is not a man who will bring you lots of assists and goals. That's just not what he does. He brings chaos and mayhem to other teams. He creates a lot of danger and problems and will create space for his teammates. That is undeniable. He's got a lot of skill, power and pace. But if you're looking for a man with end product, that is not your man. This season alone, 20 appearances, still no goals or assists. With that one, my personal feeling, and this is only me, I mean nothing in the grand scale of things, but my personal feeling would be, why not just buy a right wing back? Why not get a guy who can do the job exactly as specified and will bring you what you require? But I also appreciate on the other side of things that, Paratici likes Traore, is a player that he tried to sign for Juventus for big money in the past. There is the Mendes, Jorge Mendes is his agent. He's also Matt Doherty's agent as well. Paratici and Mendes have a very good relationship. And perhaps for a 25-year-old Spanish international with, in the last 18 months of his contract, and there's lots of talk that it maybe will be 20 million or less for him financially. Is it one of those deals that you just do and then you rely on Conte to improve him, to make him another, like a Victor Moses, who Conte converted into a wing-back and did very well in his team, perhaps. And that's the logic, I'd imagine, that is Conte can sprinkle some magic and turn him into more of an end product, a finished product with some end product. I'd love for, if Traore were to come in, for him to be an absolute world beater under Conte at Tottenham. Of course I would. I personally, like I say though, I prefer Spurs would just try to go for someone who actually plays that role, a Tariq Lamptey, of course. I think he'd be fantastic in that role at Tottenham. It'd be big money, but even looking back, you do wonder when you only have to look back and think. You wonder why they're like. Obviously, Kieran Trippier I mentioned before. I think in that role would be fantastic, but obviously he's not the age profile that Tottenham go for in their transfers, and then he's heading off to Newcastle anyway, and. Even someone like Kyle Walker-Peters now probably would have flourished in that role. It's funny, isn't it, the way it works out. Even someone like Serge Aurier. You wonder whether Serge Aurier as a wing-back would actually have been better for Tottenham. Maybe consistency-wise in his attacking wasn't great, but he certainly brought more to the attacking side of things than Emerson does. But yeah. So that's the right wing back. Left sided centre back, obviously, like I said. Striker's probably the one that there will be more options out there for. But we've seen with Tottenham, it's also a position that they've really struggled in because of the very precise nature of the job. Let's put it that way. Knowing that you're probably unlikely to play alongside Harry Kane too much, but also you've got to be of the required standard to come in and replace him well. But hey, it's Tottenham. It's a long-running issue, isn't it? Central midfield is an interesting one. Like I say, that's the one I know Conte wants to add to that list of potential new recruits. Obviously, like I say, Højbjerg's been struggling a little bit. Skip's doing well, obviously still young and improving. Harry Winks, it's probably the first time yesterday that I didn't feel he'd come on and made an impact. Tongi Ndombele just doesn't seem to be Conte's cup of tea. Dele Alli, likewise. So I just wonder whether the thinking is to move Dele and probably Tongi on, and then with that money, or whatever you get, whether they're loans, I don't know. You try to bring someone else into that midfield engine room area, maybe someone with the ability to not only put in the tackles but also be able to play the ball forward and quickly. Because this is the thing, the Conte system relies not only on those wing backs, they're crucial, but also on one of the midfielders being able to very quickly recycle the ball and get it forward to the attacking players. He doesn't often play with like a playmaker type, but it can be someone that's a bit of an all-rounder. And I just wonder whether that's the kind of person we're looking for. And I should stress, I said 4 positions that I think Tottenham are looking at, but what I would also add to that, whether that's all doable in the January transfer window is another thing. I said before about finances and I'm having to be clever, but also it's just a January transfer window. And it's like, however much we want to say player A, B or C should be signed by Tottenham this month, player A, B or C is very unlikely to be available. It's clubs are far more reluctant to let players go, especially if they're worried about relegation or they're looking to challenge for something. Often players don't want to leave mid-season unless they're having an absolute mare at their clubs. We've got the COVID situation now with clubs suddenly having bigger absences than they thought before, where you get not only an injury issue in one area of the squad, but you could also have another person with COVID or having to isolate. Then you suddenly can't let your team numbers drop too much. It's going to be a weird window. Paratici will look to try and fill some of those gaps that I spoke of. The left side centre back, the right wing back, the Conte's central midfielder that he wants, and a striker. So they will look to try to start doing that. Conte's not expecting miracles in January, and it's only worth moving for the players that will actually improve his squad. We all get very excited about names. We're excited about unknown players that we've never seen in action, or we've seen a YouTube highlights compilation. But it's important that whoever comes in is actually someone that improves the squad. It's someone that, that ticks every box that Conte needs. It really is. So you look at in recent years, pre-Paratici, and I'd even say post-Paratici in the summer, how many of the players Tottenham have signed have gone on to be sustained successes? I think jury's still probably out on a fair few of them. Some of them it looks like it's not going to work for. I'd say out of the summer bunch that Paratici bought for Nuno, probably Romero's the one that you can see is top draw quality, and even he's been injured for a fair chunk. Brian Hill, we've seen little moments, but he's very young and, hasn't really played a consistent amount of games yet. Emerson Royale, like I said, very raw, maybe suits the Nuno kind of right back more than the Conte right wing back. Pape Matar, obviously we haven't even seen yet. So he's plying his trade in Metz and he's doing okay. He's playing every other game, essentially starting every other game there, but I don't see a player who's likely to come in and be a regular first-team starter straight from the off when he arrives in the summer. Pierluigi Gallini, hasn't kind of really pushed Lloris whenever he's come in. I think there's been some talk about him potentially going back this month. I don't believe Atalanta have a recall clause this month. It would have to be something that Tottenham would agree to. But yeah, in terms of those players, you're looking at maybe one in Romero who's been a success, but even him, I say be a success, he's the player that we can see is going to be top class, I think. But we haven't seen much of him. And even players from last season, like, say, last summer, Reguilon and Højbjerg, who both, I'd say, especially Højbjerg had a terrific season last season until Spurs essentially ran him into the ground. neither those two probably have sustained what they did when they first joined. And this isn't to say that any of the players I've mentioned can then go on and be cannot go on and be top quality players for years to come at Spurs, but makes you look at the transfers. You know, it just shows you that even the players that we're most excited about weren't exactly top draw recruits that came in and bang instantly have been heroes for Tottenham and will be consistently. They need work. And this is Tottenham's transfer thing, isn't it? It's always players that are not the finished product, and they need that little bit more, and that is the difference. You know, when Conte talks about the difference with the top teams, that's going to be Tottenham's thing. They don't buy finished products. They like to develop, and that brings hits and misses, and it probably brings more misses than it does hits, to be honest. Let's see what this window brings, and then let's hope that Conte shows as much patience in the, and I hate to use the word, project at Tottenham as Tottenham, and hopefully the fans will with him. I'd hope the fans will show him patience, because a lot of them have been calling for him for a long time, and I think he is one of the best in the world. And if he can't do it, then what hope is there, really? I think that's probably the best way to say it.